We begin this edition from South Korea, and in 2017, the country went through a bit of a political turmoil. Corruption and public pressure vacated the president's seat, and snap election brought Moon Jae-in on the global forefront. But 5 years later, he went out less unpopular than when he took power. His tenure was stained with a grave pandemic and a reeling economy. Today, a new leader has been sworn in. Meet President Yoon Suk-Yeol. After winning by the smallest margin ever, Yoon took over the world's 10th largest economy. He is a political novice who made it to the top seat in his first try. He has been one of the best prosecutors in the country. Yoon played a key role in convicting ex-President Park Geun-hye for abuse of power, and even indicted a top aide of former President Moon Jae-in. He is already making headlines for his controversial pledges. And why won't he? Yoon is an ardent follower of British wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill. For the East Asian country, neighboring North Korea has been a constant threat. So how Yoon plans to tackle this was much awaited. In a latest address, the new president has called for a complete denuclearization of North Korea. And in return, he has promised a significant amount of economic aid, something that has never been pledged before. He slammed the previous administration for weak response to nuclear threats. So in his tenure, he has promised to repair past mistakes and take strong action in case of any security threat. Yoon's swearing in comes at a crucial time because Pyongyang has conducted a record 15 weapons tests since January. 2 launches happened just last week. Let's take a look at some of the other promises made by Yoon. He has decided to relocate the presidential office, so the decades-old Blue House will be vacated and made into a public park. This has soured public sentiments because people view this move as unnecessary and costly. But Yoon believes that the Blue House is a symbol of imperial power, since it was used by the Japanese colonial administration. The new president has also vowed to abolish Ministry of Gender Equality, but experts say his lack of political skill makes him naive because the National Assembly is controlled by a democratic party. So this conservative move will likely face extreme backlash. South Korea is a country of 52 million, which still has a mixed feeling about the Yoon's presidential win. He is not likely to have an easy ride. He took office with some of the lowest approval ratings, to be precise, around 41%. And for more on this, WION correspondent Phoebe Amoroso joins us live from Tokyo. Phoebe, good to see you. What are some of the challenges that the new president will inherit from the previous government, and why are some of his promises, especially towards North Korea, being considered controversial?
Well, Yoon has inherited a whole host of challenges from the previous Moon administration. South Korean society is really suffering from great amounts of inequality. There are complaints there's lack of affordable housing, and we're seeing a huge amount of divides along both gender and generational lines. Now, all of this provides a backdrop to an economy that's really struggling to recover post the COVID-19 pandemic. And adding to that, we're seeing a global inflation rise, and that's really pushing up costs at home on South Korea. Now, Yoon has come to power on a platform in which he promised to tackle corruption, and is really going to have to work hard to win the public trust. Already, some of his cabinet picks have proved controversial, and many are skeptical because he comes to politics as a relative newcomer. He was a prosecutor for 26 years, and it's only in the past year that he stepped into politics. So some feel that he is fairly inexperienced. Then there is also the parliament, which is controlled by the opposition party, so that's going to make it very difficult for him to push some policies forward. When it comes to North Korea, that is potentially one of the biggest flashpoints when it comes to foreign policy, and he has said that he will offer North Korea economic support if North Korea works towards denuclearization. But some had hoped that he would be taking a tougher stance, and he's yet to lay out an exact roadmap of how he's going to approach that. So that's something that we're going to be watching going forwards.
Phoebe, apart from North Korea, what is the significance of the new president when it comes to South Korea's foreign policy?
His focus is very much on freedom. That is a buzzword that we heard many times during his speech in the inauguration ceremony. And the focus really is on trilateral relations with Japan and the United States. Now, tensions have been rising with Japan over recent years. In fact, their relations between South Korea and Japan have hit a rock bottom low over differences over the two countries' wartime past. An agreement in 2015 was deemed by the Moon administration to be highly flawed, and that led to a series of court cases against Japanese companies. And that really strained relations. However, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi did attend the inauguration ceremony, and he became the first Japanese foreign minister to visit the country since 2018. And both sides have since held a meeting and have expressed the willingness to really warm up ties and say that this is actually a very necessary and urgent matter. Now, Yoon has said that he's looking to a future-oriented approach when it comes to South Korea's dealings with Japan. Then when it comes to the United States, he's also expressed his intention to increase the defense cooperation. He's looking for further military cooperation with the United States and potentially even buying further the THAAD missile system, which is likely to be a move that will provoke China. But it's not just defense military security here, also economic security. And US President Joe Biden is scheduled to visit both South Korea and Japan later this month. And that's expected to coincide with the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, which is a new policy that the United States is pushing to really tighten economic cooperation in the region.
Right, finally, Phoebe, various observers are curious. How will South Korea's new president approach Russia's Ukraine invasion?
He's largely expected to follow in the footsteps of the former Moon administration. The Moon administration was criticized initially for being slow to impose sanctions and being slow to condemn Russia's actions, but it since has taken that strong stance against Russia, and it's expected Yoon will follow along these lines, and this will give him the opportunity, some observers say, to advance a very clear foreign policy based on principles that South Korea adheres to. So that will be along the lines of freedom, of peace and prosperity. These are words that Yoon himself has used. It's also an opportunity for him to diversify South Korea's partnerships. And as I mentioned, of course, he's looking to Japan and the United States, but some analysts say that South Korea may be turning more towards Europe and trying to strengthen alliances in that direction. Yoon has already stated that it's time for South Korea, as the world's 10th largest economy, to take a larger role on the global stage and more responsibility. And related to this, the response to Russia will allow South Korea to increase its defense and deterrence capabilities. Again, it's looking to potentially host more of the US military to increase the US's deterrence capabilities as well. These moves are likely to anger Russia and China, and already South Korea has received some strong words from both countries. And there's also a risk that its moves for defense will also escalate tensions with North Korea, and that would be in the opposite direction that they're trying to head in at the moment, to diffuse those tensions and work towards denuclearization. So that is a risk point there. But overall, it's expected that South Korea will be playing a larger role on the international stage.
Live from Tokyo, our correspondent Phoebe Amoroso, thank you very much for talking to us today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.